On today's episode, we're going to grade the quarterbacks from the 2024 NFL Draft Class, starting with rookie Michael Penix Jr. for the Atlanta Falcons. In his first start, why did he receive a fairly good grade? We'll tell you that and more coming up next.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Locked On family? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast. Cover your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson. You can find and follow me on X at DP_NFL. I'm a senior draft analyst, and thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydays. You know I got to kick the intro to Mr. LSU himself, Keith Sanchez. You can find and follow him on X at TheTalentCode. Keep talking to him, baby.
What's up, Locked On family? Let's get locked in. This is Keith Sanchez, 2019 national champ, man, and the other side to this dynamic duo that we like to call the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. And I want to start this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. DP, rookie report. We getting some updated rookies. We have Michael Penix Jr. is now included in the rookie report, got his first start. We're going to talk about Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels, and we're going to wrap this thing up with Drake, May, and Bo Nix. But let's start in hot Atlanta. Michael Penix Jr. first start against the New York Giants. Let's get into the conversation.
You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $250 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Michael Penix Jr. in his first NFL start, taking over his job now as the franchise quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons. 18-27, 202 yards passing, 0 passing touchdowns, 1 interception that was not his fault. Keith, I give him a B. The throw to Kyle Pitts that hit Kyle Pitts dead in the hands. I know there was some contact with the DB, bounced off of Kyle Pitts, went into the hands of an upfield DB for the interception that wasn't on him, and that was in the red zone. He threw a dime down the field, probably 40, 50 yards, it felt like, to Kyle Pitts. It was a DPI. The DB was all over Kyle Pitts, you know what I mean? Got, jumped way too early, really handsy and everything, stopped him from making the play on the ball. But the explosiveness in the arm, right? We spent time with Michael Penix Jr. at the Senior Bowl. We watched him up close and personal at the event. The arm talent is real. The ability to throw with RPMs and velocity, that's one of his best traits. Like, he can throw it on the rope. And that's what some of the stuff, that's really what Kirk Cousins wasn't able to do. And I think also with Penix, he didn't look overwhelmed to me. Like, he didn't look like a guy that's, okay, it's my first start. I'm shell-shocked. I'm a deer in headlights. He looked comfortable. He looked confident operating this offense. And I think if he was able to nail that pass, if the DPI wasn't there, Kyle Pitts catches that pass in the red zone, they score on that drive. The play action pass, like if you got with Bijan, I think Bijan had 22 carries or something. Yeah, 22 for 94, 2 rushing touchdowns. You think about now having Michael Penix, who can then offer that run game, play action, and you get inside your own 45 to 50. That's shot play territory, Keith. You get the play action, take that deep ball down the field, whether it's to Drake London, Darnell Mooney, Kyle Pitts, or whoever. You got a guy now who can make the throws that really could take advantage of what you're able to do offensively. I give him a B.
Yeah, so watching Michael, first off, I was a Michael Penix guy coming out, right? Like you talked about it at the Senior Bowl, thought the guy had good arm strength, thought he could rip it, thought he was a calculated guy, had an opportunity to interview him. I thought that he gave you franchise type of quarterback vibes, right? Just the way he carried himself. The thing with the game, and it's kind of like how we talked about the college games, like when we talked about the Notre Dame game, and just how I don't think it was all about them, right? Like obviously the rookie quarterback, you're gonna look at him from that perspective, right? But the 2 pick sixes I think they had, or 2 defensive touchdowns, I'm sorry, that the Falcons had, right? Like and then just the Giants being the Giants. I agree with you. He had a couple throws, right? But I guess I look at it and not like, once again, the same conversation, not to his fault. I just probably give it a C+, right? I thought he did some good things. I thought he did some solid things. And then I thought there was some, hey, I mean, looks like, and I didn't expect the A+ performance just because of the situation is just, okay, Kirk Cousins was the starter the entire time. It appears that they thought that he would be the starter for at least a year, maybe 2, if you gave him that contract. And then week 15, pull Kirk, put Penix in, and roll. I don't think he was ready like for that moment, right? And not saying it in a bad way, but I would have liked to see him in his first start after he had a whole offseason of preparing, right, as the starter and getting all of those things down top. That you just kind of threw him in there when you do things like that. But like I said, I thought it was a C+. I thought it was a pretty good performance. I thought the arrow should be pointing up for Penix, and you should feel good about it after that.
No, 100%. Like not being able to, well, coming in and you feel like as a competitor, you want the opportunity to battle with Kirk Cousins in camp and prove yourself, and maybe you can make it a conversation. But they paid Kirk over $100 million or whatever it was. Like, there is no conversation to be had in training camp after we make this decision. We're trying to roll with Kirk, and the whole he can run the offense for Zach, for Zach Robinson, I think is the OC name, and everything from the Rams. He can run that West Coast Shanahan McVay offense, and 100% he can. But it was like, when you look at the skill set of Michael Penix, he can as well. So not having the opportunity, or just being the mindset of, I'm probably not starting the game this year, and then towards the backstretch of the season, Kirk Cousins throws I think 5 interceptions over 2 or 3 weeks, and the Achilles doesn't look healed, and he doesn't look good. And they're like, yeah, we cannot do this. We got a chance to make the playoffs, and this is a team that they want that success. They want to get to the postseason, and the NFC South Championship and winning that division isn't within grasp. And if they kept playing Kirk, they felt like, we're going to lose this. You know what I mean? And that's why I said, for me, it's looking at for everything involved. First start, not really getting to truly prepare as the starter. You're just expecting to be, I'm just learning what not to do, what to do. I'm learning to be a pro. And it's yeah, not anymore, bud. You're playing. And not only are you playing, we're cutting Kirk Cousins in the offseason. So you're the guy now. It's that pressure being lumped on him. I felt like he handled it well. And like you said, I think the arrow is pointing up. That's why you give him a C+. I guess why I gave him a B. I was like, all right, I like what I saw from him. He did what he needed to do. He made some strong throws, even though they weren't fully completed and brought in. But he made the type of throws that you think about if you're a Falcons fan, okay, this is what's going to open up our offense. That 3-point shot. We got spacing now. We can throw the ball down the field. We can create explosives in the passing attack based on, especially from under center off the run game. I think Michael Penix, the arrow absolutely is pointing up. And I feel like you go ahead and get him better. Now, Atlanta, you look at this offseason, you're let's bring some more another explosive receiver to pair with a Drake London. And, I don't know what you do with Kyle Pitts at this point. You know what I mean? If you can get him back to playing competent ball down the stretch in the playoffs, cool. But maybe you look in this tight end class. Oh no, the Falcons absolutely should be walk out there with 2. You know what I'm saying? You go ahead and get yourself 2 young guys, and maybe you use Kyle Pitts as a trade asset in the offseason if you don't feel comfortable with him going forward. But having Michael Penix, I think he did well enough, and I'm excited to see what it looks like as the game slows down for him down the back stretch of this season, getting them some more games under his belt, some more opportunities. Hey, they could win the division.
Yep, in prime seed, especially with what Tampa Bay did. You lose to the Cowboys with a backup quarterback. But
Sean White's going to be thinking about Deron Bland for probably the rest of the season, man.
Well, let's keep this thing going in Florida, man. We talked about a quarterback, Michael Penix Jr., who this week was his first start. But let's talk about 2 guys who've been starting since week 1, Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels. Let's have the updated rookie report conversation coming up next.
The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up a W. I love betting on which players will score a touchdown and how many points each team will score. Why? Because it's thrilling. Guys, they have so many different ways for you to bet and win on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. To get in on this action, just visit fanduel.com to join today. That's fanduel.com to join today for your chance at $250 back in bonus bets. Again, $250 back in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Caleb Williams, keep the #1 overall pick for the Chicago Bears. And it feels like the Bears just continue to do what they always do and just not put quarterbacks in the greatest situations. But over the last couple of weeks, Keith, I think they've lost like 10 straight games. That is insane.
Yeah,
That with the talent that they have, that's crazy. That's coaching. Like, that's why Eberflus is gone and the OC is gone. Like, that's why all that's gone, right? Like, and over the past, I said about 3 to 4 weeks, they played Detroit twice, they lost to San Fran, they lost to Minnesota, right? And outside the first Detroit, and it's crazy because against Detroit is when Caleb has played his best over the last 4 weeks. The games against San Fran, 17 of 23, 134, 2 passing touchdowns, no interceptions. The game against Minnesota, 18 of 31, 191, 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions. Now, mind you, he's not throwing a pick since October 13th against the Jaguars in that game that they won. They blew out the Jaguars. He hasn't thrown an interception since. So, like, that's a good thing. He's not turned the ball over. But Sunday, Keith, they lost by 17. But that was probably the best he's looked for most of this season especially against Detroit Lions. 26 of 40, 334 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, 0 interceptions. I think for him, if a grade I can give, I give a C+. I give a C+ overall. He's dealing with a lot, like new interim head coach in Thomas Brown, who was the interim OC before you. Chicago got a lot going on, man. You know what I mean? Got a lot going on. But I think Caleb he's shown us enough flashes to where you still feel good about him as a player. Like, you're like, okay, we knew that at the end of the day there was going to be some growing pains with playing within structure and not doing all the Houdini stuff he did at USC, like that college stuff. That'll come. I think that the stuff that he did it's going to translate, but it's going to translate when it needs to. Like, I think when he continues gets that experience underneath his belt, he's playing within rhythm, within structure of the offense. And when he's like dialing it up and he's dotting every I and crossing every T in the pocket, and now they're expecting him to just play from the top pocket, and then he starts the Houdini stuff, like that becomes his secondary superpower, turning himself into that true pocket passer, which is just it's a growing experience. And I think for him, a C+ is good for him. The game, he was impressive Sunday. Like, he impressed me Sunday. Watching that game, I'm like, okay, Caleb, like, this is the throws I like to see, the confidence I like to see, the making the plays from the pocket. They're not letting him run around like he did in college. So just developing that mindset of like, okay, I can't bail, so I got to make these reads and throws from the pocket. I feel like we're starting to see that a little bit more with him.
Yeah, I think with Caleb, right, when I look at it, it's about consistency. But I agree with you. Like, looking at the situation, DP, I'm looking at some of these sack numbers. You sacked 9 times against New England, which is crazy, right? Which that was the beginning of November, but that's still a crazy number. San Fran 7, Detroit
7.
The first time was 5, right? So just crazy.
60 sacks this year. 60 sacks.
For a guy that's also mobile too, right? Like, it's not like he's not mobile. Like, he's a mobile guy, so they definitely have to get that part fixed up. The one like heavy critique I would have with Caleb is the down the field accuracy, and it's not even in the middle of the field. It's not working the intermediate parts. It's the down the field accuracy. I guess you would say on the numbers, right outside the hashes, and when wide receivers are running vertical routes, right? His ball is still. And sailing is not the word, but it's like it still has too much velocity to where it's not coming up and coming down, right? It's still 2-3 feet in front of the wide. Yeah, it's still hot. Yeah, it's still hot, and it's still taking off on the wide receivers. That's the one part, because I'll give it's two-sided, right? That the Chicago Bears situation is purely dysfunctional, right? They're like, what you describe, new head coach, new OC, this guy getting bumped up. Like, nobody knows where anybody was at the beginning of the season, right? But he's also missing a couple throws too, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I'm and just watching the games. I don't know why, but I feel like I've watched a lot of Chicago Bears games. I guess they just came in, like I'm just catching them on my New Orleans
Yeah.
feed or whatever, and just watching the game. It's like he does some good things, and then it's like, man, if you would have just hit that throw, right? Like that's the
Yeah.
one right there. That's for the touchdown, and you could just see like the chemistry just being a little bit off with Keenan Allen and Rome Odunze. Just a
Mhm.
little bit, but the promise is there. I agree with you. I think the one thing he's improved from beginning to end, stop escaping backwards out of the pocket, which I talked about like week 2, and now he's escaping forward, keeping his eyes down
Yeah.
the field, and he's making good throws. He looks like an NFL like competent quarterback. It's just improving the accuracy things, and then obviously the O line and stuff, and the Chicago Bears have to improve around him. But I'll give him a B minus. I'll give him a B minus for shouldering the load, and
Yeah.
still playing decent football over a large stretch. In the NFC North is no joke, right? Playing the Vikings, playing the Lions, playing the Packers, like that's all
Yeah.
team that's vying for playoff spots. They might get 3 in. Like the
Mhm.
Bears might be the only team that don't get the
Yeah,
playoffs.
I think they will get 3 in. Actually, I think they're going to get 3 teams in.
Yeah, they might be the only one. But DP, we talked about Caleb Williams. Let's flip this on the other side, man, and talk about Jaden Daniels. What's your report on him?
Man, Jaden Daniels and kid. Last time we did this a couple weeks ago, he was like we talked about how he hadn't looked the same since that rib injury and everything as Carolina. But these past 4 weeks, he's thrown like against Dallas. They lost in such a weird way, but it wasn't on him. In my opinion, he 275 yards passing. He did have 2 interceptions in that game, but he had 3 total touchdowns. Over 70 yards rushing as well. Tennessee, he was 25 of 30, 206, 3 touchdowns, passing, 1 rushing, just being that dual threat guy. Against New Orleans, a 1-point win, over 60 yards rushing, 2 passing touchdowns, over 220 yards passing. And against Philly, he had the 2 interceptions, right? He had almost 100 yards. He had close to 100 yards rushing, like 81 yards rushing, 258 yards passing, 5 passing touchdowns. That last one was just, like he just looks healthier to me now. That like that rib is not bothering him as much because one of those throws he put so much body into it. I was like, okay, yeah, that's the turn and torque of the core that we didn't see after that rib injury. It was kind of shoulders are turning, maybe some we get some hip action, but that core wasn't moving because he was trying to protect his rib cage. And I feel like he's healthier now, and this guy is just like confident. Like we see guys like make a turnover, a bad point of the game. You're like, well, that might be it. You know what I mean? It's like you might lose this game now, and like you see them kind of, I guess, fall off a cliff. Not with Jaden Daniels. Like his confidence is rarely shaken. It's just it's kind of unreal to see as a rookie. I give him a B plus, Keith. I like what I've seen from a dual threat, being a dual threat guy. But even in a game where Jalen Hurts didn't play, Philly still put up 33 points. You know what I mean? Like Philly still put up points with Kenny Pickett at quarterback. And I just thought that Washington was going to lose this game. I'm like, if Kenny Pickett's putting up points on you, that might be it. And Jaden Daniels still put that team on his back, still put that offense on his back. I think it was just 5 total touchdowns. Yeah, he didn't have a rushing. 5 total passing touchdowns, over 3,300 yards passing, 22 touchdowns right now. He's been playing well.
And yeah, DP, I think he just sets the floor with his athleticism because even watching that Philly game, right? It's not about the 50-yard runs. It's about the 3rd and 8s, right? And then he picks up yardage with his legs. It's about the, like I said, those key 3rd downs of his 4th and 4, and then he has to scramble and pick up the 1st down with his legs just to keep the drive going, keep positive momentum going, and then he makes a big time throw. So I think his legs, DP, are going to be a big part of his game, which is A-OK, right? Like just the fact that he can extend drives with his legs, like that's very important, right? They like make plays with his legs, and then he has the arm talent that when he misses, because I know he missed that one, the interception. I thought that was the game sealer. That I feel like he gave the game to Philly, and then Philly gave them back an opportunity to get in the game when the ball kind of sailed on him through the middle of the field, right? But hey, I get the ball back, I make a couple plays with my legs, I put us back in scoring position, throw the touchdown, right? So even if his arm isn't operating at an elite level, his legs can kind of get him by until he gets into his rhythm and routine. And I just think that's who Jaden Daniels is, but that's also really fun. So I give him a B. Also, I think he's playing good football, but DP, it's a lot of quarterbacks, man. We have 5 quarterbacks going the first round, so that means we got to talk about 5 quarterbacks. Next segment, we talking about Drake May, Bo Nix, coming up next.
Today's episode is sponsored by PrizePicks. If you love watching the game, you're going to love PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Whether it's football, basketball, or any of your favorite sports, PrizePicks makes your holidays bigger and brighter. You can now win up to 1,000 times your money on PrizePicks. Plus, this holiday season, they're giving away $30+ million in rewards during Picksmas and offering 2 free picks in December. And when your picks hit, PrizePicks makes it easy to cash out. You can get your money in as fast as 15 minutes. And to get in on the action and a deal like this, just download the PrizePicks app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 instantly when you just play $5. Guys, it's really simple. PrizePicks, run your game. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and everyday shot for being our everydayers. Keith, Drake May, quarterback, 3rd overall pick of the 2024 NFL Draft, quarterback for those New England Patriots. Last 4 games, man, you know, he's thrown over 200 yards in each game. He's made some plays with his legs. Keith, he's got turnovers. He's got passing touchdowns. What is your grade for Drake May?
Yeah, this is tough, right? Because when we got this one right? The Broncos, we say was the worst situation and wound up not being that bad. New England, we say was a horrible situation. We got this right? Like even this past week when they played Buffalo, right? Like New England got off to a hot start, but then it was just kind of like didn't work out. Like they consistently hit the we don't have enough talent threshold, right? Like that's what happens. They hit the threshold. It was like, yeah, we play hard, but we just not that good, right? We're not a good football team. And so grading Drake May, I don't want to look at him. It's almost like I don't want to put him in it. What you have to put him in his own vacuum, but I don't want to just place it all on, okay, how Drake May is playing. I think if I had to just give him something, I don't think he's playing spectacular, right? Like there's no standout games. But I also think that's due to the talent. So I'm gonna give him a C+, but it's like a optimistic C+ because I see good things from him. And when I watch Drake May, do I feel like the New England Patriots have their franchise quarterback? Yes, right. But on a season, his numbers are very average, right? For a rookie quarterback, 14 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, just over 2,000 yards passing, right? You look at the past few games, Buffalo 260, Arizona 200 yards, Indy 230, Miami 220. There's not really any like, oh man, he lit it up that game, right? It's a lot of solid, but they also don't have the weapons for him to do that. So I look at it and I give him a C+ because I think he's playing good football. But just like with Michael Penix, I'm saying like, hey, the arrow's pointing up, just in a very dysfunctional offensively situation.
Yeah, no, I give him a C+ myself, Keith. I think with everything he's dealing with, man, like the touchdown throw to Kayshon Boutte was like chef's kiss. Like that was a perfect throw over the right shoulder. Like you got to think it was Kyer Elam was right in his hip pocket. Like it was great coverage, just a way better. That was an elite throw down the sideline. Very little room for Kayshon to be able to get 2 feet in, make the catch inbounds, and he just put it on him, right? The throw, I think they had pressure right in his face. He evaded it, and it was kind of like a jump pass in the middle of the field. Now, you don't want him doing that too much because, those type of things can get picked off in the NFL. But just his ability to make plays, to make throws, and to be honest, he outperformed the guy who had all the weapons in the MVP case in Josh Allen. Josh Allen played worse than Drake May did in this game.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? He just on a better team. He just was on a better team, and that's why you get the dub. But I think with Drake May, like you said, they have their franchise guy. Now, what's the goal? What's the goal in this offseason and draft? Put players around Drake May. I say when you don't have, I think the offensive line is still an issue, right? You still need tackle help and different things like that. Like you need receivers. I mean, even though Kayshon has been has shown up and flashed, and I think Pop Douglas is solid. They might need a tight end as well. Like they got some things they got to figure out.
Yep.
Yeah, they got. I don't know. I don't even look at their cap space right now, but they got to use something. If they have good cap, they need to use it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure DP, because I was knocking out some cap stuff a couple weeks ago. I'm pretty sure they're in like a really good spot cap wise. Like they might be top 5 if I believe. Ooh. They got a lot of I'm pretty sure they have a lot of money to
go
spend.
Get T. Higgins, baby.
Higgins. And that's the thing, right? Go acquire guys that can help you out at the end of the day. And I think that's what it should be about for for New England, because like I said, it's just difficult to just watch that and then be like, oh, well, you know what, Drake May, it's all your fault at the end of the day. Yeah. But yeah, I think New England's in a good spot cap wise, if I'm not mistaken.
They have some right.
One of the they have some of the they have one of the highest caps as far as money to spend. That's the best way to put it.
Get T. If Philly lets Mekhi Becton walk, go get him too.
Pick him up too.
You know what I mean? The way he's reestablished himself playing the guard spot for Philly, I think Philly's gonna re-sign him. But if he hits free agency and it becomes a bidding war, you might have more money than them. They paid a lot of guys. You haven't. Like, go ahead and open up the checkbook. But I agree. I think the arrow's pointing up. They just got to go ahead and improve this roster around them.
Yeah, well, DP, let's wrap this thing up with Bo Nix. And probably the surprise of all of the starters, right? Just how well he's playing through these games. I would say this, that I want to give credit to Sean Payton too, because I think actually watching the Broncos, and I've watched a few games via like all 22, he's doing a good job with playing to Bo Nix's strengths, right? There is some elements of, I don't want to say, because people think when you say college, right, that you're knocking. But what I'm saying is that some of the stuff that I feel like he did at Oregon, right, the short throws, the screens, things like that, that's just from what I've seen the couple games that I've watched. And then also letting him push the ball vertical down the field and taking shots. That's some of what he did at Oregon. And I see some of that with Denver. And so I think that he's playing good football, though.
No, and he, for the most part, he has like I said, he's been kind of the biggest shock of these quarterbacks is how well he's played. And Bo Nix, not like you said, like Sean Payton has found a more athletic and bigger arm version of what he hopes to turn. He wants to turn Bo Nix into that Drew Brees. That take what's there, be disciplined with the ball, take what's in the short to intermediate, and when we dial up some isolated deep shots, you take them, right? He's done that for the most part fairly well. I think, these last couple of weeks, his play is he's turned the ball over more. In like the last 4 games, he has 5 interceptions. He went back-to-back weeks, 2 against Cleveland and then 3 against Indiana with the Colts or whatever. He had 3 passing touchdowns, but he only threw for like 130 yards, less than 4 yards per attempt, and he had 3 interceptions. So 5 interceptions in his last 4 games and everything. And I think for him, it's going to be countering when teams take away the underneath routes. Like, because coming out of Oregon, he played 5 years. Keith, he was like a 5-year starter. The one thing that, and we saw it at the Senior Bowl in one-on-ones, it's the deep ball accuracy when he has to throw the ball outside the numbers and upfield. He has the arm talent to do so. It's just the accuracy. You know what I mean? The ball placement. And he's struggling with that still at times this year, where when teams like really want to force him to throw vertical, he hasn't been great at doing so. He's been solid, but on throws 20 plus yards down the field, 4 of his 11 interceptions have come on throws down the field, 20 plus yards. He's completing less than 40% of his passes, down the field, but he only takes, like, it's crazy. Throwing down the field, only 13% of his attempts have come 20 plus yards on the field. He's taking everything short to intermediate. We saw that in the Chargers game. He only made 1 throw north of 20 yards down the field. Everything was 20 and under, 10 and under. And it's like the Chargers ended up coming back and winning that game because you couldn't make the certain throws that you needed to make. And I think that's going to be the development for him in the NFL is when teams start to take like the check down stuff, the hitting the underneath routes is cool, but then you start playing, I could play an umbrella over you. I could play you with an umbrella. I can sit at 10 yards, play off coverage, trigger downhill, and make big hits on your receivers or jump underneath routes. I can rally to the ball. You got to start hitting the deep ball consistently to back defenses up and make them play you honest. That's going to be the development for him. but I give him like over the last 4 games, I give him a C+. The turnovers were bad. Like he had some bad interceptions against the Colts and stuff like that. The Browns interceptions were what they were. The Browns is a good defense, but like the Colts aren't the greatest defense in the world either, like with themselves. So he just got to protect the ball. You know what I mean? He did a good job protecting the ball against the Chargers, but I wondered that in that game, only 1 attempt over 20 yards with the 5 interceptions the 2 weeks before that. Did he get a little gun shy? You know what I mean? And stuff like that. He was just a little too quick to take the check down. And that's where it's like, okay, you got to become. I'm gonna tell you, if he doesn't fix that, kid, you know who he's going to become? Derek Carr. Like he's gonna become Derek Carr because Derek Carr has ample arm talent to hit the deep ball, the long ball. Derek Carr has always been a passive thrower where he never you didn't see enough aggressiveness from him. I don't want Bo Nix to fall into that category.
Yep, I agree. Not wanting him to trend the other way, right? Especially how hot he started. But excited to see what he can do overall, right? Because he was a surprise of the draft. But DP, I'm with you.
Yeah.
I give him a C+. And the potential to, just being optimistic about what he can do and see how he finishes out the season. But DP, I give us an A+, man. We get an A+ for this podcast, man. But listen, that wraps up another episode, man, of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to end this podcast all by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. Every listener is greatly appreciated here over at Locked On NFL Draft. I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That right there is my guy, my co-host, Mr. Damian Parson. You can find him on X at DP_NFL. And like we like to say, man, y'all come talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts, to get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and everyday shot, for being our everydayers. And guys, listen, on tomorrow's show, we're getting into scouting LSU wide receiver right in Keith's neck of the woods. So every time we talk about them Bengal Tigers from LSU, he's all about it. We're going to talk about the wide receiver, Kyron Lacey. We're going to scout him, have that conversation about how these wide receiver NFL-needy teams, how they need to approach the 2025 NFL Draft. It's a wide receiver podcast tomorrow on tomorrow's show. So come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.